Phantasm.
Thank you.
Oh,
Phantasm. That would be a good one.
yeah.
The Exorcist.
Oh,
So my question is, like, when we talk about, like, Angela and, sleepaway camp, with the way that kind of politics has changed, what do you think about that?
That's just a really good question. I just remember seeing that, not having any idea, in the 80s, I swear it was like at a sleepover birthday party or something like that, and seeing it, I know at a sleepaway, no, but at the time in the 80s, it was shocking, and that's a good point. Having it redone now, I don't know that that would be something that's as shocking, or like a big twist. They would almost have to put a different spin on it, but then would it be sleepaway camp? That's a really good question. I don't even know. I'm with you. I think that was because and he even goes, "What is sleepaway camp?" And going through the list, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh. But you're right. Now would be like, so that's a really good question.
With like political climate and stuff like that, you'll see. Like I had looked at like during the Reagan era, you had Diamond on the Street, you had Friday the 13th, a lot of like stuff that attacked families, stuff that did that. So a lot of the values we see now are probably getting put into horror movies. Like after 9/11, that's when we got torture porn. We got Saw, Hostel, and all those movies started coming up. So it's a little tweaking, but probably see a lot more slasher movies.
But it's that age-old thing about movies and pop culture. It reflects the times that they're made in. So you would find, if somebody were to do that remake, then obviously taking a side or showing a different light on things. But whether it's obviously wrong or right. But I think one of the biggest things about horror movies, comedies, anything that has any type of goal to make either you laugh, make you sad, make you fearful, they're going to go within it, and it could also not be a political statement about anything happening. It could be they had that idea 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or they've been trying to get this one pitch done their whole life, and they finally got enough clout to do it. That can also be it too.
Just a comment on sleepaway camp, that reminded me. Pamela Springsteen is actually Bruce's little sister.
sister. Okay. I knew they were related. I thought it was cousin, but thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm from Philly, so. And how could you not like the Matthew McConaughey, Renelle Zellweger, Texas Chainsaw?
Because I despise Matthew McConaughey with every fiber of my friggin' being. That's all I'm gonna say on that one.
The movie I really like to see them redo is Nightbreed.
Yes.
Because they
Good old
really
Clyde Barker.
right.
Yeah, that.
That's on the list. That's your suggestion.
Oh, was it?
Nightbreed, that is definitely a great idea. I mean, hey, Hellraisers, they did the Hulu reboot a few years ago. They just announced 2 days ago there's a video game coming, so maybe we'll see some action in Clyde Barker's world soon.
Maybe just slow down on Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
There was a William Castle cycle in the early aughts that didn't really appeal to me, but I'm still holding out for the Tingler, which I had heard announced.
That is a great idea. Let's get those classic 50s movies back and, redo them. Although, I also remember though what they tried with the day the Earth stood still. So there are certain things, and I remember James Cameron had apparently they were all set to redo. Is it Forbidden Planet? I always get Forbidden and Fantastic. I know them in my head, but then they leaked the script, and that basically threw it. I'm trying to remember, wasn't it Straczynski's script at Babylon 5? I think it's something like 80% of the script was leaked, or either way, the script got out, and they basically said no point in rewriting it and going because the whole unique pitch was taken. But boy, the Tingler would be a great idea. Any of you ever hear about that one? That was the one where they put the little electric shocks around and there was apparently a bit in the film when they were like, watch out, it's loose, and they randomly shocked the seats because people thought the Tingler was actually loose in the theater. That'd be great. You know, it's funny, I love what you said about sleepaway camp because I actually had that discussion with my son, and he was like, you know, I like these slasher films, but I don't like all the nudity in them. And, what were you saying? I basically took a look at him and I'm like, okay, that's not a standpoint that his mother, and I definitely had, and I said, son, you gotta remember, there was a formula for horror films of this type from the 70s to the 80s into the early 90s. And I said, and I get times change. I'm not saying we need to go back to that, but it was always, we're gonna have some gratuitous, you know, we're gonna have a lot of this, we're gonna have this. The movies have evolved, obviously. Now we're getting far more graphic violence, but they've toned down the other stuff. And I said, and that's great. The problem is, some of these things, that was always a central part of the story. The people who did these activities never lasted till the end. And now you have this whole thing of, you have far more people surviving these horror films. They moved away from the, you know, the final girl to final girl and her boyfriend and her best friend and so on and so forth. And while that's interesting, because you used to be able to say, well, that's the one that's gonna live, it makes adapting some of these older films, like, anyone remember The Stepfather?
Yeah.
And when they tried to reboot it, and I don't mean the third one, when Terry didn't come back, the full reboot, they had to completely, you know, change up several aspects of the film, and that just didn't work.
There's still a couple of suggestions on this list that I'm familiar with this stuff.
Yeah, I mentioned that one briefly, that's a good one.
Night of the Creeps.
Oh, yes. Yes. You guys all remember that one?
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, it was, let's see if I got this one right. It was like these little slugs, and it was like a parasitic zombie invasion, and it hit a college campus. It was, what was it, right before homecoming, if I remember right? And there's the classic line of like the security guard going, your dates are here. Unfortunately, bad news is they're all dead. And so, yeah, that would,
So is Slither a take on that?
yeah, I in some ways, and maybe if you really wanted to go, like Peter Jackson's Devil Life, which, you know, the Kung Fu priest taking on zombies in the graveyard is still one of my favorite moments in horror history.
Yeah, I just had two comments. One was after we'd taken the poll, my roommate wrote to me, and she emphatically wanted to add a movie called Eyes Without a Face.
Oh.
And then the song.
And the simple fact that, yeah, we have so much better, like, CGI.
Which is true for a lot of the ones, particularly that were very effects heavy during the 80s, where they made it worse by trying to appeal to that, which they could much better do now for sure.
And one was a response to what he was just saying about the formula in the horror movies. I lived overseas for a good part of my life, and they had a very different take on the way they presented the balance between the sex and the violence. And I remember one particular time I was watching Basic Instinct, and they had these scenes where they just had hours and hours, basically, what seemed like, of sex, really graphic sex. And then when it came to the time, I never even knew what happened to the main characters because they never showed any of the killing.
Oh.
And so I was so confused about what was going on. They showed 20 minutes of sex and no killing at all. Yeah, I just want to add that, you know, the different balances, but yeah, I know you're talking about formulas.
I got one for you all. Do you ever, how many of you remember The Incredible Melting Man? Rick Baker won an Oscar for it. I remember my parents taking me to see it at the drive-in. It gave me nightmares. Now, horror doesn't bug me now. And I remember watching it in my early 20s, again, going, oh, I can't believe this bothered me. And then a few years later, there's Mystery Science Theater ripping it to pieces. And I think that was like full evolution from nightmare to, wow, I can't believe this thing is good. But with the digital effects now, and as you mentioned, the body horror, that could be a very interesting, path to take right now.
I like my wacky horror movies. One that I thought would be great, but we can't can't do it now, because I don't know who would do it, would be Ernest Scared Stupid. That would be when people said John Cena, like he'd be perfect at it, but how many movies do we get with him until people get tired of it, like they did with Kevin Hart and all these other actors who you see him everywhere. Kate Pascal now, he's that point where someone's eating one.
So, Karen, I have one for you. Twilight Zone. Now, when we have the Twilight Zone movie, obviously we remember the Vic Morrow tragedy that shortened that to one segment. They have the classic William Shatner remake with John Lithgow. Which of the classic Twilight Zone episodes would you love to see them remake in an anthology?
Anyway, okay, I absolutely love that. Why can I not remember? Well, the one where they're in the diner and they're the Martian and the Venus.
Real Martian, please stand up.
That's, I know, and I just watched it like 17 times and I couldn't remember. Yes, that would be just amazing to see. And I don't know why I love this so much, but the Hitchhiker one, it freaks me out every time, and I make him watch it with me because I will not watch that one by myself, and how he's all like back there and she's like wondering what's happening. I love that one. And then, what are the other one, it's just more of a personal thing, but I think the gambling one is so funny when the slot machine's going after that crabby guy and he's like, that's just stupid, why don't you throw it in the trash? And it's mostly because I absolutely love to gamble, and every time I make him take me to the casino, he's like, why don't you just throw the money in the trash, it'd be cheaper. And I'm like, you're the guy on the gambling thing. But then he's all in there, hitting the friggin' video poker just as much as I am, so I'm like, whatever. So that would be more of a funny one, but I really, truly do want to see more of the really, really good classic ones, like the really real, hello, Talking Tina, because I'm a doll person, I'm obsessed with dolls. I even bought the Entertainment Earth Talking Tina replica. That would be a really good one to see. There's just so many, and then the one, for some reason, I've never seen, the How to Serve Man. The To Serve Man, yeah. And I was like, how have I never seen this one? He's like, oh yeah, we watch it all the time. Those, that are like classic, that haven't been redone, like the William Shatner with the airplane, which is wonderful, but
I thought I Shot an Arrow in the Air and Where Is Everybody? Those are two that really stuck with me over the years. But those, there were so many of them. It's like they all stick with you. But
that's what I'm saying. There are so many of them, and if it's done well, it would just be really cool to see. Not the farce. Like I keep saying, I love the Twilight Zone movie from the 80s because it was so goofy. If it's done like really well, I think it could be really good.
And it's going to be interesting too, because you have all kinds of the main reason why we get so many horror films is that they are considered cheap and very easy to produce, and that's why they do them, because you're almost always guaranteed a profit. And what I'm really curious about, have you heard about what's happening with Saw? Yep. So they were all set to do another Saw film after the huge success of the last two films, and it kind of fell apart over disagreement, shall we say. Well, all of a sudden the film rights ended up with Blumhouse and Atomic Monster, which is run by James Wan, who was one of the co-creators of the series. So essentially, the creators now have input and control back over the franchise. And they had told me years ago, I was lucky enough to interview them right after the first film, and occasionally James will pop on Facebook, respond to something. And he had said that, we had never intended the Saw films to go in the direction that they did. We kind of stepped away after the first film, but they kept us on as producers. And, it'd be interesting to see what he's going to do.
Hello, hope you guys are enjoying Comic-Con. Two movies I forgot to mention, The Reanimator and the movie Dolls. I don't know if you guys have ever watched it. I know that as a kid, my parents kind of left that VCR at the bottom shelf for me. Of course, it was in reach, and that movie gave me nightmares. To this day, I hate blinking dolls.
Yeah.
So, I guess my question for you would be, how would you imagine them redoing both of those movies? Because they are so good, especially in the context that they are in. Like, I don't see a way for them to actually redo them without screwing the movie up.
Right.
Wow, that is a great one. That took the. So Dolls and Reanimator. Well, Dolls, I think the Child's Play movies have kind of given us and maybe not the new one, but the first Megan film, has given us a little bit of a template, CGI, go to town. Reanimator would be a tough one. I mean, that mad scientist. I almost debated telling you this, but somebody like a month ago said they're actually kicking around Frankenhooker and redoing, and I'm like, I can't see any studio financing that. That would have to be independent. But it made me think about Reanimator, which occasionally has popped up. It would have to be like a Frankenstein thing, but I don't know if you could stop it ahead this time. What do you think?
I'm with you. I don't know that they could redo Reanimator.
But with the effects, if they had any kind of budget with the CGI effects, you could have some real fun with that, because you wouldn't be stuck with a head in a tray that we all know was someone, sticking their head up.
Sticking their head through a hole in the tray.
I can tell you at least on the studio side that it's really difficult to get horror movies made nowadays that require big budget movies. Like Garrett said earlier, they are known for being low budget and high gross. That's kind of the template that you try to go for. It hasn't been until recently that you have a studio like A24 come out of the woodwork and prove that horror can be cinema. And that has always been a really long fight for a lot of companies like Warner Brothers. They finance their own films, but they also head over and like cinema. So they're chugging out a couple of movies each year, but that's because they do a lot of really good back research on how many bucks they think they can come in the seats, if they can get tax incentives back on it depending on where they film. There's a lot that goes into it. So if you have the added layer of controversy, maybe not this political right, it gets even more difficult. So there is a possibility that, well, yes, in the right context it can be done, the slimmer the chance it gets is simply just because there's a lot of factors at play. But that's one of the bigger overlying factors of horror movies is that a lot of them originally came up because there's so much more to be afraid of in life than there is to be excited about for a lot of people. But that's kind of the whole point of movies, isn't it? So you feel that horror, but then it makes you appreciate all the good things that happen to you later.
The two movies I'm about to mention aren't necessarily related to Dolls or Reanimator, but I think when it comes to remaking older films, it's gonna be on the movie, the Toxic Avenger movie that's gonna be coming out. Can't remake certain dates. They actually remade Street Trash, and they remade Return of the Dead. So I think depending on how those movies turn out, you'll see how far they'll go back or how obscure they're gonna want to go.
So apparently we have a few more entries to the list.
Tremors.
Yeah. I think
That one I actually did watch. Rubber.
Okay.
Rubber. I'm familiar with that. Rubber.
It's a killer tire. Yeah.
Oh.
It's like Attack the Killer Tomatoes gone bad. It's a tire. The tire that just rolls along, taking out everything.
And the Massive Madness.
Yes.
The Monster Squad.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Someone said this Exorcist should be a TV show. Needful Things. It Follows. And Teeth.
Yeah, that's the difference.
You know, nobody's brought up the Halloween series?
No one's brought up the Halloween. Oh my goodness.
I thought about the Halloween, but I didn't want to add to the list.
Wolfen.
So.
Yeah, remember that one?
I liked Wolfen.
Cat people. I mean,
Let's see, Wolfen, if they redid it.
Yeah, that's true.
The idea to have
really,
Wolfen was really good.
you had a really good point, is that we do have all the zombies, we have the vampires, we have all that, but we don't have any wolf movies. Like, once again, a good wolf thing, because that would be good.
Twilight really killed the vampire.
You know, that's very true.
Maybe
Twilight
it's
got a
teeth.
scary version of it.
Oh.
What was teeth about?
I
Oh,
know.
boy.
You know the one where the stars or something.
And I was like, what is tea? What is happening? I don't know.
I'll tell you about that one later. I don't know if I don't know how I could describe that in a family-friendly setting, no matter.
Oh.
Think body part.
Thank you, yes.
Oh my goodness.
One of the things I thought was,
Yeah, oh, down. Guess what we won't be watching at our house.
One of the things I thought about was, why do we have to remake the original one? Like, somebody brought up Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, why don't we remake that one? Why don't we start with Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors? Like, we don't have to go back to the original
What a
one.
good idea. Take one of the good ones instead of that. That's a great idea, Victor. Jason Takes Manhattan. Have you seen the splice that's going around where they splice Jason kicking in the door and there's Sam Jackson doing his very X-rated "Who the blank are you, blanky blank?" And I'm like, I could watch that movie.
I wouldn't mind to see Dream Warriors.
Last question.
Alright, well, first, for Hostels remake, Airbnb.
Yes.
Airbnb.
And for why, that would be so awesome, like that scene with the nail coming off.
Wow.
But I had a suggestion of a horror twist on Inception, because that way the creativity would be all over the place. You could do all these horror ones that everyone's talking about, like going to people that are traumatized as a separate little horror thing in there, right?
That is a brilliant
That
idea.
is a really good
You should
idea.
pitch that.
I know.
I don't know.
It's all gonna be on there.
But yeah, that'd be really cool because you could track out, like, I feel like you could tease a lot of movies that were up on that list, you know? You'd be like, how would that fare as an actual little horror movie?
Great idea. Well, that is it for our time tonight. We'll appreciate you all coming out. I hope everyone has a good rest of the night and get rested up and ready for the next couple of days. Thank you.